Colin Gamage. This evening I would like to have a look at what links a 19th century doggerel poet, tragedian and actor with a 20th century comedy writer and poet, other than that they were both male and of Irish ancestry. The first was born in 1825 or 1830. He was never quite sure of the date of his birth, in the Greyfriars parish in Edinburgh. The son of a poor Irish immigrant weaver, he was himself apprenticed as a handloom weaver in Dundee, where the family had moved in search of work. He died penniless back in Edinburgh in 1902 and was buried there in a then unmarked grave. He was William Topaz McGonagall. He would write, "The most startling incident in my life is the time I discovered myself to be a poet," which was in the year 1877. Throughout his life, he considered himself to be a genius of poetry and even wrote and tried to visit Queen Victoria in Balmoral in search of her patronage and a wish for her to make him the poet laureate. However, McGonagall has been acclaimed as the worst poet in British history. The chief criticisms are that he was deaf to poetic metaphor and unable to scan correctly. However, I'll let you judge for yourselves with the worth or not of his poetry. With this extract only, I'm not going to bore you with all of the moon. Beautiful moon with our silvery light, thou seemest most charming to my sight. As I gaze upon thee in the sky so high, a tear of joy does moisten mine eye. A beautiful moon with thy silvery light, thou cheerest the Eskimo in the night, for thou lettest him to sea to harpoon the fish. With them he makes a dainty dish. Beautiful moon with thy silvery light, thou cheerest the fox in the night, thou lettest him to steal the grey goose away out of the farmyard from a stack of hay. Beautiful moon with thy silvery light, thou cheerest the farmer in the night, and makes his heart beat high with delight as he views his crops in the night. Beautiful moon with thy silvery light, thou cheerest the poacher in the night, for thou lettest him to sea to set his snares, to catch the rabbits and the hares. Well, you just proved something. McGonagall's fame stems from the fact that the humorous effects of his shortcomings as a poet generate the inappropriate rhythms, weak vocabulary, and ill-advised imagery combine to make his work among the most unintentionally amusing dramatic poetry in the English language. Groups throughout Scotland engaged him to make recitations from his work, and contemporary descriptions of these performances indicate that many listeners were appreciating McGonagall's skill as a comic music hall character. In 1880 he sailed to London to seek his fortune, and in 1887 to New York. In both instances he returned singularly unsuccessful. In 1890 McGonagall was in dire straits. McGonagall was in dire straits financially. To help him, his friends funded publication of a collection of his work, Poetic Gems. William Topaz McGonagall has become something of a cult figure, and collections of his verse remain popular, entre guillemets, with several volumes of his over 200 poems still available today. So I'll start to go through them, shall I? No. Many of his poems relate to disasters, and from these I've selected to read a second example of his work because of its theatrical connections. So here is The Burning of the People's Variety Theatre, Aberdeen. 'Twas in the year of 1896, on the 30th of September, which many people in Aberdeen will long remember, the burning of the People's Variety Theatre in Bridge Place, because the fire spread like lightning at a rapid pace. The fire broke out on the stage about 8 o'clock, which gave the audience a very fearful shock. Then a stampede ensued, and a rush was made pell-mell, and in the crush trying to get out, many people fell. The stage flies took fire owing to the gas, not having enough room by then to pass. And with his jacket Mr. Macaulay tried to put out the flame. Oh, horrible to relate! it was all in vain. Oh, it was a pitiful and fearful sight to see both old and young struggling with all their might, for to escape from that merciless fire, while it roared and mounted higher and higher. But accidents will happen both on sea and land, and the works of the Almighty are hard to understand. And thank God there's only a few has fallen victims to the fire. I hope they are in heaven, amongst the heavenly choir. From McGonagall's death, we jump ahead 16 years to the birth of my second poet for this evening. Born in Ahmednagar, India in April 1918, he was the son of an English mother and an Irish father serving in the British Army. He died in February 2002 in Rye, East Sussex. He was christened Terence Alan Patrick Shawn, but was better known as Smike Pillican. Oh, no, sorry, Spike Milligan. Over the years, Spike developed a continuing fascination with the works of William T. McGonagall, so it's not surprising that a character based on this cult figure soon was appearing in the famous Goon Show. His earliest appearance was in the saga of HMS Aldgate in December 1952, the first of many stories to be introduced with a few succinct lines, verse read by William J. McGoonigal. McGonagall's verse adds a definite air of culture to the show he appears in, such as this from The Siege of Khartoum, 1953, and reworked in 1954. Oh, 'twas in the year of 1884, and in the month of June, that Major Bloodnock and his gallant men were besieged in Khartoum. Besieged by the Mahdi's savage men, they formed a thin red line. But the Mahdi didn't care at all, for he was Mahdi fine. William T. McGonagall wrote 3 poems, the most famous ones actually, if they are famous or infamous, of the railway bridge of the Silvery Tay near Dundee. That's the title of the first. The second was the Tay Bridge disaster, because the thing a few years after it was built collapsed. And the third, an address to the new Tay Bridge, was used as a basis for a Goon Show in February 1955. No. And of course, William J. McGonagall soon made an appearance at the Sucky Hall Labour Exchange. Oh, what a glorious sight to see! 10,000 unemployed Scotsmen, all happy and free. There they lay kipping all in a row. And oh. And later, when the new bridge is completed, William J. McGonagall, poet, tragedian and twit, pens a verse of appreciation. Oh, beautiful new bridge over the Silvery Tay, which has caused the Maharaja of Pongistan to leave his home so far away, incognito in his dress, and he will pass this way on his journey to Inverness. In fact, this verse was a parody on an actual one written by William Topaz McGonagall, except that in that case his visitor was the Emperor of Brazil. But what of Spike's own poetry? Well, he's most famous for his comic verse, such as comic verse for kids. He also wrote serious poetry. The first collection, with which Small Dreams of a Scorpion was published in 1972. From this I've selected the following, of which his manager, mentor and troubleshooter for 30-odd years, Norma Farnes, wrote when witnessing the onset of one of Spike's bouts of depression. I once asked him to explain how he felt at such times, and he gave me this poem. The pain is too much. 1,000 grim winters grow in my head. In my ears the sound of the coming dead. All seasons, all same, all living, all pain. No opiate to lock still my senses. Only left the body-locked tenses. Spike told her that he had written that poem, Manic Depression, when he was in St Luke's psychiatric wing of Woodside Hospital in 1953-1954. However, to close on a somewhat lighter vein, No comic stuff this time. There's some memory of his boyhood in India. As a boy, I watched India through fresh empirical eyes. Inside my young khaki head, I grew not knowing any other world. My father was a great warrior. My mother was beautiful and never washed dishes. Other people did that. I was only 4. I remember they cleaned my shoes and made my bed. Ida ao, com curao. Yet, in time I found them gentler than the khaki people. They smiled in their poverty. After dark, when the khaki people were drunk in the mess, I could hear Minima and her family playing in their go-down. In the bazaar, the khaki men are brawling. No wonder they asked us to leave.
Now, before Adrian Hanna gets up to read hers, the poem that she's going to read won first prize in the poetry section of the Geneva Writers' 20th anniversary competition in 2013. We're very privileged. Adrian didn't want me to say this, but anyway, we're very privileged to have her reading her very own poetry. Adrian.
Mind over matter. I'd been ill for months, hawking up phlegm, off school nearly a year. It drove Mum nuts. They'd added a sunroom to our house. I'd been moved there for the light, repotted like a plant, chlorophyll-starved. Housebound, cocooned and cushions on the couch. Boredom stifled my mind. I complained non-stop, but forced to stay put. A therapist was called in. You can't go out, she said, but you can leave in your head. I thought she was mad. Shut your eyes, trace a track and see where it leads. I tried, and it worked. I skipped up a path of feathery bush, glistening ferns unfolded, bowed to make room. Bellbirds broke in with sharp song, the cacophony of frogs keen to mate as they plop into ponds. I ate butterflies in sand, sniffed flowers, turned up life under stones, wrote poems, webbed tales, whistled tunes. Birds hummed along to the moon. I pocketed these scenes, even now bring them out when I'm down. This one was written, it's been about 30 years ago. The beginning days of the Village Players. When was that, John?
November the 11th, 1981.
Okay, well it was 30 years ago.
7:45 p.m.
And there was a workshop given by Elisa von Zabo from Actors Studio, New York, the famous Actors Studio, and giving the Village Players a Saturday workshop at École Nouvelle. And boy, I've never been to such a workshop in my life. So the poem's called The Workshop. The drama teacher said, explore your feelings, dig deep inside. Think someone you love has died. I tried and failed. I dug through the murk, hadn't cried for Dad, but was Ginger twitching his last dream, though he hadn't seemed sad. Squinting through dry eyes, I glimpsed real tears, saw heaving chests, heard violent sobs exploding, and wasn't moved. They wailed and writhed. A Greek tragedy was taking place, and I was left out. Her voice slapped me hard. Think of something else then. Shocked, I thought of me, my messed up life, how I'd missed my chances, and come to this, and wept success.